Admiral Kim Tae-ho pressed his face against the cold metal of the observation deck's railing. His fingers traced the edges of the holographic invitation that floated before him like a cruel joke. The letters sparkled in brilliant silver against the star-filled backdrop of space. Admiral Kim Tae-ho, hero of the Proxima Wars, defender of Earth's colonies, all the fancy titles were there, written in the flowing script that the Galactic Council reserved for their most honored guests. But, as his eyes scanned the guest list, his heart sank. One name was missing, the most important name of all. "Dad, stop staring at that thing," came a voice from behind him. Leonori floated gracefully through the zero-gravity chamber. Her movements fluid and practiced after years of working in space. Her dark skin seemed to glow against the pristine white of her laboratory coat, and her eyes held that familiar spark of intelligence that had made him so proud over the years. "It's really okay," she continued, though Tae-ho could hear the hurt she was trying to hide. "I've got 3 research projects running simultaneously. The Council's little party would just be a distraction anyway." Tae-ho turned to face his daughter, the woman he had raised since she was 6 years old. He remembered the day he found her, in the ruins of Colony 7, the only survivor of a brutal alien attack. She had been clutching a broken data pad, trying to decode the attacker's language patterns even as her world burned around her. That determination had never left her. "Nari, you've done more for galactic peace than half the diplomats who'll be sipping exotic drinks on that ship," he said, gesturing toward the massive vessel that dominated the view outside. "You cracked the Zephyrian war codes when their entire fleet was bearing down on New Tokyo. You established first contact with the Crystalline Collective when they were ready to glass our mining station. Hell, you even figured out how to communicate with those blob creatures from the Andromeda sector." Nari pushed off from the wall and drifted closer to her father. 7 species, Dad. 7 different alien languages. 7 different ways of thinking. And you know what the Council's response was? They sent me a thank you note. A damn thank you note. Through the reinforced windows of the station, they could see the Harmony in all its glory. The ship was a marvel of engineering, stretching over 10 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull was covered in a shifting pattern of lights that represented the member species of the Galactic Council. Right now, those lights were pulsing in celebration mode, creating a hypnotic display that could be seen from 3 star systems away. "Look at them," Tae-ho muttered, watching the smaller transport ships carrying delegates to the celebration. 100 years of the Galactic Council, and they're patting themselves on the back for bringing peace to the galaxy. But who actually prevented the wars? Who spent sleepless nights in laboratory bunkers, working to understand alien minds that think in ways we can barely comprehend? Nari's tablet suddenly erupted with urgent alerts. The device projected a 3-dimensional map of the local star systems, with several colonies flashing red. Her face went pale as she absorbed the incoming data streams. "Dad, look at this," she whispered, manipulating the holographic display. "Colony 12 just went dark. So did the mining station at Kepler 442. And there's something else. The automated distress signals aren't following standard protocols." Tae-ho leaned in closer, his military training kicking in. "What kind of protocols? The distress codes are wrong. They're using linguistic patterns I've never seen before. It's like someone took human language and twisted it into something alien." Nari's fingers flew across her tablet, pulling up communication logs and medical reports, and the symptoms the survivors are describing before they lose contact: neural disruption, system failures, but affecting different species in different ways. "Pirates?" Tae-ho asked, though he already knew the answer. "No, this is something else, something that understands biology well enough to target specific species with precision." Nari's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. Dad, I think we're looking at a biological weapon, an intelligent one. The irony wasn't lost on either of them, while the galaxy's greatest minds were celebrating on the harmony, drinking alien wine and congratulating themselves on their peaceful cooperation. A real crisis was developing in the outer colonies, and the one person who might be able to solve it had been deliberately excluded from their gathering. "They're going to need you," Taiho said quietly. Nari looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the light from the harmony. Will they admit it, though, or will they let people die rather than acknowledge that they made a mistake? Before Taiho could answer, his personal communicator crackled to life. "Admiral, we're getting reports from the Outer Rim. Whatever's happening out there, it's moving fast. The Council ship is requesting all available data. But they're not asking for Dr. Lee's input specifically." Taiho and Nari exchanged glances. In the distance, the harmony continued its celebration, unaware that their definition of cooperation was about to be tested in ways they never imagined. Deep in the bowels of Terra Station, Nari's laboratory hummed with activity. The room was a maze of holographic displays, quantum computers, and specimen containers that glowed with an eerie blue light. Dr. Park Ji-sung stood hunched over a microscopic analyzer, his usually neat hair disheveled from running his hands through it in frustration. "Nari, you need to see this," he called out, his voice cracking with exhaustion. They had been working for 18 hours straight, surviving on nothing but coffee and determination. The pathogen samples from Colony 12 just arrived, and they're not matching anything in our databases. Nari abandoned her genetic sequencer and floated over to Ji-sung's workstation. The holographic display showed a writhing mass of microscopic organisms that seemed to pulse with their own malevolent intelligence. The creatures were constantly shifting, their cellular structure changing every few seconds like living liquid metal. "My God," she whispered, leaning closer to the display. "They're not just reproducing, they're evolving in real time." Ji-sung nodded grimly. "Watch what happens when I introduce different alien tissue samples." He manipulated the controls, and the display split into multiple screens. The pathogen attacked Zephyrian nerve clusters with surgical precision. In another, it dissolved the crystalline matrix that served as the collective's equivalent of a brain. Each attack was perfectly tailored to its target species. "It's like they have a blueprint for every known form of life in the galaxy," Nari said, her scientific mind racing. "But that's impossible. No single organism could store that much genetic information, unless it's not a single organism," Ji-sung replied. "Look at the quantum signatures. These things are networked, sharing information across vast distances instantaneously. They're learning from each other." Nari's tablet chimed with another urgent message. This time it was from the medical frigate Mercy, which had been dispatched to the outer colonies to provide aid. The ship's chief medical officer, Dr. Sarah Chen, appeared on the small screen looking haggard and desperate. "Nari, thank God you're there, Doctor," Chen said, her voice distorted by the long-range transmission. "We're at Colony 15, and it's a nightmare. The pathogen isn't just killing people. It's turning them into something else. The infected are still conscious, still aware, but their bodies are being rewritten at the cellular level." The transmission flickered, showing brief glimpses of the medical bay aboard the Mercy. Nari could see patients strapped to biobeds, their bodies covered in strange growths that pulsed with the same rhythm as the pathogen samples. In her lab, the worst part, Dr. Chen continued, is that they're trying to communicate. The infected are speaking in languages we don't recognize, but our translation computers are picking up patterns. It's like they're trying to warn us about something. The transmission cut out, leaving Nari and Ji-sung staring at the empty screen. The silence in the laboratory was broken only by the hum of machinery and the distant sound of space traffic outside TH. East Station. We need to decode those communication patterns, Nari said, already moving toward a linguistic analysis station. If the infected are trying to communicate, maybe they can tell us where this pathogen came from. Ji-sung pulled up the genetic analysis results on the main display, Nari. I've been cross-referencing the pathogen's DNA structure with historical databases. Look at this. He highlighted a series of genetic markers that glowed red against the swirling pattern of the organism's genetic code. Nari's breath caught in her throat. Those markers. They're from the Void Wars. The Void Wars had been the darkest chapter in galactic history. 1,000 years ago. An ancient civilization had tried to wipe out all other forms of life in the galaxy using biological weapons, the W. They're so horrific, so effective, that every surviving species had agreed to bury all records of them. The weapons had been destroyed, the technology lost, the very mention of them forbidden. But that's impossible, Ji-sung said, though his voice lacked conviction. All the bioweapons from the Void Wars were destroyed. The Treaty of Stellar Silence made sure of that. Apparently not all of them. Nari replied, her fingers flying across the interface as she dove deeper into the genetic analysis. Someone found a sample, maybe from a derelict ship or a forgotten research station. They've been improving on it. The laboratory's emergency communication system suddenly crackled to life. Dr. Lee, this is Admiral Kim. We're getting reports that the pathogen has reached the inner colonies. The Council is finally admitting they need help, but they're still not asking for you specifically. Nari looked up from her work, her face grim. Tell them they don't have a choice anymore. Dad, this isn't just some random plague. Someone has weaponized the worst nightmare from our galactic history, and they're using it to target specific species. Meanwhile, aboard the Harmony, the celebration continued in blissful ignorance. Admiral Taiho moved through the crowd of alien dignitaries like a shark among colorful fish. His dress uniform was immaculate, his medals polished to perfection, but his eyes were cold as he observed the beings who had excluded his daughter. The Council's chairman, Murdoch, approached him with the flowing grace typical of his crystalline species. His body was made of living crystal that reflected light in patterns that served as both communication and emotional expression. Right now, those patterns showed smug satisfaction. Admiral Kim, Murdoch said, his voice resonating like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. We are truly honored by your presence. Such a shame that your daughter could not attend. I'm sure she understands that this celebration is for those who have truly contributed to galactic peace. Taiho's smile never wavered, but his grip tightened on his champagne glass. Indeed, Chairman Murdoch. Such a shame that the galaxy's foremost expert on alien biology and communication isn't here to enjoy your hospitality. Oh, but surely you understand, interjected Councillor Velta, a tall being whose bioluminescent skin pulsed with condescending amusement. This is a celebration of proven leaders, not experimental researchers. Before Taiho could respond, his personal communicator vibrated with an urgent message. The text was brief but chilling. Pathogen has reached Proxima Station. Casualty reports incoming. Council medical team requesting immediate consultation with all available xenobiologists. Taiho looked up at the alien dignitaries surrounding him, their faces still glowing with the joy of celebration. Soon, he knew, that joy would turn to terror, and when it did, they would come crawling to the woman they had deemed unworthy of their party. The irony was almost too perfect to bear. The grand banquet hall of the Harmony was a sight to behold. Delegates from across the galaxy sat at crystalline tables that floated in perfect formation. each one adjusted to accommodate the unique needs of different species. The air shimmered with translation fields, allowing beings who breathed methane to sit next to those who required pure oxygen. Exotic delicacies from 100 worlds filled the tables while holographic entertainers performed impossible feats of light and sound. Counselor Velter raised his glass of liquid starlight, the bioluminescent patterns on his skin pulsing with joy to another century of peace and prosperity. He declared, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. The assembled delegates cheered in their various languages, creating a symphony of alien sounds that would have been cacophonous to human ears without the translation systems. But then something went wrong. Velter's glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the floor in a shower of glowing fragments. His bioluminescent skin began flickering wildly, patterns of light racing across his body like a broken computer screen. His eyes rolled back, showing only white, and he toppled forward onto his dinner plate with a wet thud. "Velter!" shouted Counselor Zixandra, an insectoid being with multiple arms that clicked together in distress. She reached for him, but her own movements suddenly became jerky and uncontrolled. Her compound eyes began changing colors rapidly, cycling through hues that had no names in any language. Within minutes, the elegant banquet had become a scene of chaos. Delegates from 6 different species were collapsing simultaneously. The crystalline beings' bodies began cracking like broken glass. The gaseous entities started losing cohesion, their forms dissolving into shapeless clouds. Even the robotic representatives, who should have been immune to biological threats, were sparking and twitching as their circuits overloaded. Medical emergency. The ship's automated systems began broadcasting in every known language. All personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Admiral Taiho pushed through the panicking crowd, his military training taking over. He grabbed a fallen delegate who was convulsing on the floor, checking for vital signs, even though he had no idea what normal vital signs looked like for this particular species. The being's skin was turning colors that definitely weren't natural, and its breathing sounded like a broken engine. Admiral Kim, Dr. Zerthik, the Council's chief medical officer, came running toward him. The doctor was a tall, thin being with 6 arms and skin that looked like liquid mercury. Right now, that skin was rippling with stress patterns. "We need to get you to safety. This outbreak is spreading faster than anything we've ever seen." Taiho looked round the banquet hall, where medical teams were rushing between fallen delegates with equipment that looked more like art installations than medical devices. "How many infected?" 47 and climbing, Zerthik replied, consulting a holographic display that projected from his wrist. "The pathogen is adapting to each species as it encounters them. It's like nothing in our databases." They rushed through the ship's corridors, past emergency teams and panicking staff members. The harmony was a maze of curved passages and floating platforms, designed to be beautiful rather than practical. Now that beauty was working against them as medical teams struggled to navigate the artistic architecture while carrying emergency equipment in the emergency command center. The scene was barely controlled chaos. The ship's best scientists worked frantically at holographic displays that showed the pathogen spread in real time. Red dots marked infected individuals, and the pattern was expanding like a virus through a computer network. "Captain Murgith," Dr. Zerthik called out to the ship's commander, a being that looked like a cross between a whale and a tree. "We need to evacuate immediately. This pathogen is beyond our capabilities." The captain's massive form turned toward them, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "Evacuation is impossible. Doctor, the pathogen has somehow interfaced with our transportation systems. Our shuttle bays are sealed, and the docking ports won't respond to commands. We're trapped." Taiho moved to one of the tactical displays. his experience with space combat helping him interpret the ship's schematics. "What about the escape pods?" "Compromised," replied the ship's tactical officer, a being with multiple eyes on stalks. "The pathogen is affecting our bioneural networks. It's like the ship itself is infected." Back on Terra Station, Nari watched the emergency broadcasts with growing horror. The holographic displays in her laboratory showed the Harmony listing, slightly in space, its beautiful light patterns flickering erratically. Emergency signals were broadcasting on every frequency, but the Council's pride was keeping them from asking for help from the humans they had excluded. "The pathogen is using the ship's own systems against them," she told Ji-sung, pointing to the data streams flowing across her screens. "It's not just a biological weapon. It's a cybernetic one too. That's why it can interface with their technology." Ji-sun looked up from his analysis station, his face pale. "Nari, I've cracked the communication patterns from the infected. They're not just random gibberish. The pathogen is trying to establish a hive mind, linking all the infected together into a single consciousness, a consciousness that remembers. The Void Wars," Nari whispered. "That's what the infected were trying to tell us. The pathogen isn't just a weapon. It's a survivor. It's the last remnant of the ancient species that created it, and it's trying to rebuild itself using the genetic material of every species it encounters." She activated her emergency communication ray, broadcasting on all Council frequencies. "This is Dr. Nari of the Terran Space Command. I have critical information about the pathogen. You need to let me help." The response came immediately, but it wasn't from the Harmony. It was from the Council's home world, where bureaucrats, who had never seen a real crisis, were still more concerned with protocol than with saving lives. "Human vessel, you are not authorized to interfere in Council affairs. Maintain your distance or face the consequences." Nari stared at the communication screen in disbelief. "They're dying. And they're still worried about their precious protocols." Ji-sun moved to her side, his expression determined. "Then we make them listen. I'm uploading your research to every public data network in the galaxy. Let's see them ignore you when every news organization in known space is broadcasting your findings." Before Nari could respond, her personal communicator crackled to life. Her father's voice came through, calm and steady despite the chaos around him. "Nari, stay ready. Help is coming." On the Harmony, Admiral Taiho stood in the command center, watching the alien officers struggle with a crisis that was beyond their experience. His daughter had the answers they needed, but their prejudice was going to kill them all, unless he did something about it. He activated his own communicator, broadcasting on the emergency frequency that connected him directly to the human fleet. "This is Admiral Kim Taiho. I'm authorizing Operation Mercy Flight. All ships, prepare for immediate departure." The Council members in the command center looked at him in shock. "Admiral, you don't have the authority to—" "I have the authority to save lives," Taiho interrupted, his voice carrying the steel that had made him a legend in the Proxima Wars and right now. "That's exactly what I'm going to do." The bridge of the indomitable hummed with deadly purpose as Admiral Kim Taiho watched the massive Council ship growing larger on the main view screen. Behind him, the greatest fleet humanity had ever assembled moved through space like a pack of steel wolves. 12 battle cruisers, 30 destroyers, and countless support vessels, all following their admiral into what could easily become the first human-alien war in 50 years. Captain Yoon-soo Ross stood at his side, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. She had been his first officer during the Proxima Wars, and she knew that look in his eyes. Someone was going to pay for threatening his daughter, and payment was about to be collected in full. "Admiral, the Harmony is hailing us," reported communications officer Hon Menseo from her station. The young woman's voice was steady, but her knuckles were white as she gripped her console. They're demanding we maintain distance and threatening to open fire if we approach. Taiho's laugh was cold as winter on moss. Tell them they're welcome to try. Captain Sora, how are our shields? Full power, sir. Sora replied, her own smile predatory. And our weapons are locked and loaded. The Council's pretty ship might be impressive, but it's not a warship. We could cut through their defenses like paper on the view screen. The Harmony was a tragic sight. The once beautiful vessel was listing to one side, its magnificent light displays flickering erratically. Debris floated round it like a cloud of metal snow, pieces of hull plating. Escape pods that had been ejected too late, and the scattered remains of smaller ships that had tried to approach and been fired upon by the Harmony's automated defense systems, sir, called out Tactical Officer Park Donhyan. I'm reading massive system failures throughout the Council ship. Their weapons are cycling on and off randomly, and their shields are fluctuating. It's like the ship is fighting itself. Taiho activated the ship's main communication ray, broadcasting on all frequencies. His voice carried the authority of a man who had stared down alien armadas and never blinked. Council command. This is Admiral Kim Taiho of the Terran Space. Command. I'm coming aboard with my daughter, who has the kill you need. You can shoot us down, or you can let us save your lives. Choose quickly, because I'm not asking twice. The response came crackling through the speakers, but it wasn't from the pompous council bureaucrats who had excluded Nori. It was Dr. Zerthik, the council's chief medical officer, and his voice was barely a whisper. Admiral, thank the stars you're here. Our weapon systems are offline. The pathogen has infected our ship's bioneural networks. We need help. Please, then you'll have it. Taiho replied, his voice softening slightly. But my daughter gets full access to your medical facilities and complete authority over treatment protocols. No restrictions, no supervision, no interference from your council members. She runs the show. Or we turn around and leave you to die. A long pause filled the bridge. Everyone could hear the sound of chaos in the background of the transmission, alien voices shouting in panic, the wail of emergency sirens, the harsh buzz of failing equipment. Finally, Dr. Zerthik's voice came through again. Agreed, please. Hurry. Captain Sora was already moving before Taiho gave the order. All ships maintain defensive positions. Indomitable is going in alone. If anything happens to us, you have orders to evacuate the human colonies and prepare for war. The docking maneuver was a masterpiece of precision flying. The Harmony was over 10 kilometers long. But its docking ports were designed for diplomatic shuttles, not military vessels. Captain Sora had to thread the needle between the ship's randomly firing defense turrets while dealing with gravitational fields that were fluctuating wildly due to the pathogen's interference. With the ship's systems, docking port 17 is clear, reported the helmsman, sweat beading on his forehead. But those automated turrets are tracking us. One wrong move and we'll be space dust. Then don't make any wrong moves. Sora replied calmly, her hand steady on the controls. The Indomitable slid through the gap between two defense turrets with meters to spare, the massive ship moving with the grace of a dancer despite its size the moment the docking clamps engaged. Admiral Taiho was moving. Nori and her medical team were already suited up and ready, their equipment loaded onto portable platforms that could navigate the Harmony's complex corridors. Dr. Park Ji-sung carried a case of neural stabilizers that he had developed specifically for this crisis, while Nori herself was loaded down with data tablets containing all of her research on the pathogen. Remember, Taiho told his security team as they prepared to board, "We're not invaders. We're here to save lives. But if anyone tries to stop Dr. Lee from doing her job, You have my permission to remind them why humans have a reputation for being stubborn." The airlock opened with a hiss, and they stepped into hell. The Harmony had been transformed from a floating palace into a nightmare. The corridors were filled with smoke and the acrid smell of burning electronics. Emergency. Lighting cast everything in a hellish red glow, and the sound of alien voices crying out in pain echoed through the passageways. Bodies lay scattered throughout the corridors, some still moving, others ominously still. "My God," whispered one of the security officers, a veteran of 3 colonial wars who had seen more than his share of death. "It's like a plague ship." Nari pushed past him, her scientific mind already analyzing the scene. "The pathogen is attacking the ship's bioneural systems," she explained as they moved deeper into the vessel. "Most alien ships use living tissue, integrated with their computers for faster processing. The pathogen is using that connection to spread through the entire ship." They found Dr. Zerthik in the main medical bay, his usually pristine appearance now disheveled and desperate. The alien doctor's 6 arms were moving frantically between different patients. But it was clear he was fighting a losing battle. The medical bay was filled with beings from dozens of different species, each one suffering from symptoms that seemed tailored specifically to their physiology. "Dr. Lee." Zerthik called out when he saw her. "Thank the cosmos you're here. We've tried everything. Quantum antibiotics, neural scramblers, even complete system purges. Nothing works. The pathogen adapts to every treatment we try." Nari was already setting up her equipment, her movements quick and efficient. "That's because you're fighting the symptoms, not the cause. This pathogen isn't just a biological weapon. It's a cybernetic one. It's using your own ship's systems to coordinate its attacks." She activated her portable computer interface, linking it directly to the Harmony's main systems. "Ji-san, get the neural stabilizers online. I need to access their central computer core." "Nari, be careful," her father warned. "If that thing can infect alien technology, it might be able to affect human systems too." She looked up at him, her eyes blazing with determination. "Dad, I've been studying this pathogen for days. I know its weaknesses, trust me," as she worked. The council members who had excluded her from their celebration now watched with desperate hope. Chairman Murdoch, his crystalline form cracked and flickering, approached with obvious difficulty. "Dr. Lee," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "We were wrong. Can you forgive us?" Nari didn't look up from her work. "Ask me again. When everyone's alive." The real battle was just beginning. Nari's hands moved like lightning across the holographic interface, her fingers dancing through streams of data that would have overwhelmed most minds. For 18 straight hours, she had been fighting a war on 2 fronts, one against a biological nightmare that was consuming the Harmony, and another against the digital ghost that lurked in the ship's computer systems. The medical bay had become a battlefield. Dr. Park Ji-sun worked beside her, his face gray with exhaustion as he monitored the vital signs of dozens of alien patients. The pathogen had evolved beyond anything they had seen before. Every time they developed a treatment, the organism adapted within minutes, turning their own cures into weapons against them. "Nari, the Zephyrian delegates are going into cardiac arrest," Ji-sun called out, his voice hoarse from hours of shouting over the chaos. "The neural stabilizers aren't working anymore." She looked up from her computer interface, her eyes bloodshot but still burning with determination. "Run her." The medical bay was a scene of organized chaos. Alien medical staff worked frantically to save their colleagues, while human soldiers maintained order and kept the growing crowds of desperate survivors at bay. "It's learning," she whispered, staring at the data streams flowing across her screens. "The pathogen is actually learning from our treatments." Dr. Zerthik approached her, his 6 arms trembling with exhaustion. The alien doctor had been working without rest since the crisis began, and his mercury-like skin had taken on a dull, lifeless sheen. "Dr. Lee, we're losing them," he said. His voice barely above a whisper. "Every treatment we try just makes it stronger. It's like the pathogen can see into our minds." Nari's fingers paused over her keyboard. "That's it," she breathed. "It's not reading our minds. It's reading our computers. The pathogen isn't just attacking living tissue. It's interfacing with the ship's bioneural networks, learning from every diagnostic scan, every treatment protocol, every piece of medical data we generate." She turned to address the assembled council members who were still conscious. Most of them were barely able to stand, their various physiologies pushed to the breaking point by the relentless attack of the pathogen. Chairman Murdoch leaned heavily against a medical console, his crystalline form flickering like a dying light bulb. "Listen to me," she said, her voice cutting through the noise and chaos. "This isn't just a disease. It's an intelligent bioweapon that learns by watching. Every time you run a medical scan, every time you analyze a tissue sample, every time you develop a treatment, it's watching through your own computer systems. That's why everything you've tried has failed. The pathogen has been staying one step ahead because it knows exactly what you're going to do before you do it." The revelation hit the alien medical staff like a physical blow. They had been fighting an enemy that could see their every move, predict their every strategy, and counter their every attempt at treatment. "But how do we fight something that can predict our actions?" asked Dr. Velkora, a tentacled being whose species was known for their medical expertise. "If it can see everything we do." Nari smiled for the first time in hours. "Then we show it what it wants to see. We feed it lies." Working with speed born of desperation, Nari began constructing what she called a digital decor, instead of trying to hide her medical protocols from the pathogen. She would flood it with false information. She created fake diagnostic readings, phantom treatment protocols, and imaginary patient data, all designed to make the pathogen adapt to threats that didn't exist. "Ji-sung, I need you to start the real treatment protocol," she said, her fingers flying across the interface as she constructed increasingly complex false data streams. "But keep it completely isolated from the main computer systems. No digital records, no automated systems, nothing the pathogen can access for the next 6 hours." Nari waged psychological warfare against an alien intelligence that had survived. For 1,000 years, she fed the pathogen false information about human biology, making it believe that human hearts were located in their heads, that human blood was toxic to other species, and that human neural patterns operated on completely different frequencies. The pathogen took the bait. It began adapting to fight these phantom human characteristics, leaving itself vulnerable to the real treatments that Ji-sung was administering manually, one by one. The infected delegates began to recover as the pathogen's defenses crumbled. Counselor Velter was the first to open his eyes. His bioluminescent skin flickered weakly, but the chaotic patterns had been replaced by the steady glow of health. He looked round the medical bay with confusion, then focused on Nori, the human. He whispered, his voice filled with wonder. "She saved us all." Would spread through the harmony like wildfire. The pathogen that had seemed unstoppable was retreating, its digital foothold in the ship's systems collapsing as Nori's false data streams corrupted its learning algorithms. The ship's lights stopped flickering, the gravity generators stabilized, and the automated defense systems finally went offline. 3 days later, the crisis was officially over. The pathogen had been completely eliminated from all affected systems, and the last of the infected delegates had made full recoveries. The Harmony had been transformed from a floating tomb back into the magnificent vessel it had once been. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session in the ship's main assembly hall. For the first time in galactic history, humans were invited to participate as equal partners rather than junior members. Nari stood beside her father on the speaker's platform, no longer the excluded outsider, but humanity's foremost representative to the galactic community. Chairman Murdoch rose from his crystalline throne, his form now fully restored and shining. "With health, Dr. Nari," he announced, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. "The Council formally apologizes for our oversight. Your exclusion from our celebration was based on prejudice that nearly cost us everything." Nari stepped forward, her voice calm and steady. "The important thing is that we learned from this crisis. True cooperation isn't just about politics or treaties. It's about recognizing that wisdom and capability can come from unexpected places, and that diversity of thought is our greatest strength against the unknown." The Council voted unanimously to establish the Nori protocols, new guidelines ensuring that expertise, not prejudice, would guide their medical and scientific responses to future crises. They also created the first permanent human seat on the Council, with Nori as its inaugural representative. Admiral Taiho watched his daughter address the assembly with pride swelling in his chest. The aliens who had once dismissed her now hung on her every word, recognizing her as the brilliant scientist who had saved their lives when their own experts had failed. As the Harmony began its journey back to the Council's home system, Nari stood on the observation deck with her father. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of possibilities that had seemed impossible just days before. So Taiho said with a slight smile, "How does it feel to be the most respected human in the galaxy?" Nari laughed, the sound carrying hope and determination. "It feels like the beginning of something incredible, Dad. The real beginning." She gestured toward the vast expanse of space before them, where human ships now flew in formation with alien vessels, where species that had never trusted each other were learning to work together. "The galaxy will never underestimate humanity again," she said, "and more importantly, we'll never underestimate each other." The stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if the universe itself was celebrating this new chapter in galactic history, the END.